Lonesome Lands Podcast, Lonesome Report, May 20th. Nailed it first time. Let's get to it.
Come on.
This episode is brought to you by From the Farm. I've got a great opportunity for cattle producers. From the Farm is a platform fighting for folks like us. It was started by A.J. Richards, a homesteader whose family, the Bundys, yes, those Bundys have been homesteading since 1916, even taking on the feds to protect their property rights. AJ is kin to the Bundys, as they would say. AJ saw how corporate greed takes 70% of your revenue, 70% of the cattle producers' revenue. So From the Farm set out to help producers keep 100% of their retail dollars. They started with a 15% commission, but knew that wasn't good enough. After a year of being live, they found a solution, offering a free base membership with features other platforms charge hundreds for without bringing more customers. 80 producers are on board, serving hundreds nationwide. Set up your store at fromthefarm.org and keep your hard earned money and help us preserve our American heritage and food sovereignty by selling your products, your livestock products direct. They've got about everything from beef tallow to bacon and everything else. So if you're a consumer and you want to buy directly from the farm, go there also. Big, beautiful bunch of BS, Bill. We're recording this on Wednesday. We recorded the other part on Tuesday, but I don't know. There's stuff going on and with this big, beautiful bill where I guess the way I understand it, and Shad can let me know where I'm wrong or what. $10 million buys you the ability to take over people's land, apparently, and just claim eminent domain and bury your pipeline on their land, whether they like it or not.
The
Um,
$10 million fast tracks the licensing permission process.
a complete and total attack on property rights.
Absolutely.
That's why we're kind of coming back and filling this in. Um, I guess I don't get it.
So, if you don't know what we're talking about, it is the big, beautiful bill that President Trump keeps talking about that they presented for consideration in the continuing resolution 14 of the House or of the budget for fiscal year. The concurrent resolution is what it's called. They have all these words and they make these titles so confusing, but it's under the Energy and Commerce Committee on Energy. Okay. And it is out of section 41001 to 41006, rescissions relating to certain Inflation Reduction Act programs. So, really, they were going to rescind a bunch of spending in this big, beautiful bill. However, one of the problems that people became aware of very quickly, thanks to the South Dakota delegation, not only the legislature, but Amanda Radke, RCAF USA, all those people that really are paying attention. Thank God they are. One of the most dangerous parts of it is on under section 41006 D subsection D. It's called the effective license. And the wording goes like this: notwithstanding any other provision of law, if the commission issues a license under subsection C1 of this section, and the licensee is in compliance with such license, no requirement of state or local law that requires approval of the location of the covered pipeline with respect to which the license is issued may be enforced against the licensee. Basically, what this big, beautiful bill is doing is taking away local and county authority on property rights through federal jurisdiction. So if they wanted to come in and this is all about the carbon stuff, right? That's what this comes down to, is
The carbon stuff that we were told was all going to go away if we.
that we all thought was going to go away. And they're obviously Summit Carbon Solutions is lobbying Congress or doing whatever. We really don't. We tried to find out who put that in this bill, in this act, and I couldn't find. Nobody would answer me. Nobody's talking about it. And the rumor is by yet to this morning they were going to take that language out. That Congress was actually going to take that language out. I suspect highly thank you to the South Dakota delegation because they're the delegation that beat the Summit Carbon Pipeline last year and got that stopped in the protection of private property rights. But this same language ended up in this big, beautiful bill that Trump loves. And the rumor was they were going to take that language out this morning, Jim. But then last night, late, the rumor came back that nope, Trump's people were lobbying to keep that language in. So I really don't know where that's at right now as far as that language. If they keep that language in, I will tell you that there will be a dadgum mutiny in the northern plains, considering these pipelines in the eminent domain for private use. That's what this is all about. It's not for the better of the people, it's for private profit. I've told you before that President Trump, whom I love, he has used eminent domain for private gain in his life. So I'm assuming he very well could be in favor of this wording, and it's very
And it
dangerous.
goes back to a number of different things, but I mean, the South Dakota people use the government the way it's supposed to be used. You hear about
Yes.
grassroots, you hear about all this stuff. They took control of their community,
Yes.
and inform the people of what is going on, and those people voted out the people that are trying to do it. And they were able to protect their state and protect their community from foreign investors and
Yes.
foreign entities that are coming in and trying to take over property. And now this thing in this bill is a direct result of it. It's how the government, it's like the local community has done what they need to do. So now the federal government and some lobbyist in DC is writing this in and trying to slide it in. Nobody knows how it goes back to what we talked about on omnibus and all this stuff. The bigger you make
Yep.
these bills, the easier it
Yep.
is to slide in this BS.
Yep.
And I mean, it also goes back to the people Trump surrounded him with. We've talked about Doug Borgum and Kristi Noem. They're
Well,
all the pipeline, they were in on the pipeline from the get-go. South Dakota governor, North Dakota governor. It,
certainly Kristi Noem had a conflict of interest in that. And she, really the people of South Dakota, after she left office and was appointed Department of, where is she at? She's in the
Homeland
Homeland
Security.
Security. She's at the Homeland Security, and the guy who followed her up as the governor, he was kind of forced to sign that into bill in or that bill into law, protecting the people because the people really rose up in South Dakota, and those guys got their heinies voted out of legislature that supported this attack on private property, and so they spoke well. But this is very scary because what it does is it really delineates states' rights, right?
Oh, I mean,
The
and then everyone on down, states' rights, county
from
rights,
from
to down
that's
to the
right.
individual. Like
Correct.
it takes away the individual property right.
Correct. So here we are again asking ourselves, well, who are the freedom makers and who are the freedom takers, right? Here we are in the middle of pay to play. The Summit Carbon Solutions must be very powerful company. I'm sure they had a huge hand in this. I don't know that, but I'm sure of it. Um, and it needs to be dealt with. So if our listeners really are serious about protecting their private property rights, because it's not just going to be one state, it's going to be every single state. And I'm all for energy production. I am all for it, but you can't trample on the
This
little
isn't
man.
energy production. It's
You're right.
carbon
It's
BS. It's a
it's
scam.
not, but it's in the energy
Okay.
omnibus. That's
So
what this is.
if
The
somebody
big
calls
beautiful bill.
their congressman, what's this called? Like, what would you say? I want, like, if I call up Joni Ernst and I'm like, I
Yeah.
want,
I
or
want the language
Feenstra, I
stricken
guess.
out of the concurrent resolution on the budget for fiscal year in the energy omnibus bill. That's what I'd say.
You want the what? You want the language stricken? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yep. I would. You know,
And then would they
like you
know what you're talking about?
Sure, they'll know what you're talking about. Everything's being. I mean,
I
this is
just
the
want to
only.
be clear, like, because I haven't called yet. I'm gonna call now.
Just say what you need to do is you need to attach this to the bottom, right?
Attach it to the bottom of my phone call.
That to the bottom of our lonesome report,
Oh, of the report.
Smarty.
Okay. Well, I was gonna put America on one. Keeley did a good article on it and
Did
included
she?
like quotes from Doug Borgum, where he
Okay.
said, um, he told someone in Iowa that if they don't like the pipeline, they don't have to sign up for it, and their neighbor can get the check or something like that. Like just a total a-hole billionaire type of comment. And that's what we're dealing with now. I mean, we've always dealt with it with Trump.
Where's Karen Bedfalen on that?
I, yeah, I don't know. She's your buddy.
Well, I mean, she's a great gal, but I mean, she needs to be defending these people because that is what her law firm does is protect private property rights. And that's why she went out there is to clean this mess up. And Doug Burgum, obviously, there's a deal, there's a part of this in here, as you well said a while ago, but I need to read it, is a fee in the amount of $10 million dollars for the consideration of such application to fast track that's bribery to fast track the licensing permission.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And it was obvious that it was written by someone who wants to pay $10 million dollars and get it
Yep.
fast tracked. I mean, it
Yep.
was Summit Carbon wrote the stupid thing. And,
Bypass the local community, bypass your county commissions, bypass. I mean, this is just unreal. And I'm just blown away that if Trump is lobbying to keep this language in here, he's going to lose. He is going to lose rural America, the people, the very people that put him in.
yeah, and so go back to that. I get all of these comments. You voted, this is what you voted for. That's what I was talking about when I was talking about JBS. You voted
Yeah.
for this. We didn't vote for this. He didn't campaign on this.
Right.
And what other option did we have to continue with the entire Green New Deal? This is one little
Exactly.
section that we want to get rid of the Green New
Exactly.
Deal, and the rest of it's gone. So, like, I mean, it's not gone, but it's in the works.
Well, we
So,
damn sure had a better chance with it all now than
and
we
I
did
just hate
before.
it, that whole thing where it's like, well, you can't complain. You voted. You can't complain about someone who's in office because you voted for him. The hell you can. I mean, we have limited options here. We vote for the best candidate, and then we try to get them to do what they said they were going to do, or what they campaigned on, and why you voted for them. And so that's what
Well,
this is.
and the reason we can complain is because we did vote. That's what gives us the right to complain.
Right on.
Enough said, bro.
Obviously, the most newsworthy thing that happened over the past week is the podcast on Lonesome Lands where we talked to Charles and Heather Maude. Um, what'd you think?
I thought it was super awesome, super inspirational, and I think the cat has been let out of the bag, and they are going to lead us down a great road to reform, private property rights reform, starting in their state and going across America. I thought your podcast with them was very, very inspirational, and actually, kind of brought a tear to my eye.
Well, you're pretty involved. If you haven't heard, Charles and Heather are the ones. They have a ranch in South Dakota. They were charged with stealing government property over a 70-year-old fence that they'd never moved and faced 10 years in prison. I did a podcast with them last week, and you can find it in the description here and listen to everything they have to say because they haven't been able to talk about this really for over a year since they've been charged. And
Yeah.
there was a lot of interesting stuff I felt like that came out that had not been talked about. Um, what was there anything in there surprised you, or that
No,
you're pretty well informed on the deal? You
yeah, nothing really surprised me at all. I mean, I thought one of the hardest things about the story is that when you're charged separate like that and they have a gag order and you can't supposedly talk about the issue with your spouse and but you have to go on and do business with your spouse. And that has to be extremely difficult because your mind is not on your business, your mind is on your future. And so, how they handled that with that much grace, I have no idea. But what I've come to find out about the mods, Jim, is they are super, super good people. They're just good American people. And I just have great respect for them.
Yeah, and that goes into the more details you hear about the thing, because there's people who don't hear about it at all and they hate Trump, and so they're like, "Oh, those people are guilty," you know.
Well,
But
and
the
they hate
more,
people running on federal or state lands. They hate them too.
yeah, they just those people. I mean, they're just passing by, read a headline, make a comment, and
Yeah.
there's very few of them, so I shouldn't even brought it up. But the more details you learn about it, the more you realize how this was such I guess, witch hunt, or I mean, it was like they said, the entire thing was created to destroy them, and it goes into way like the way they indicted them, and gave them a gag order where they couldn't talk to each other. They did it over the 4th of July, so they had to find their lawyers in like 5 days over the 4th
Golly.
of July weekend. How they charged them, they forced them to get criminal attorneys in Rapid City I mean, Rapid City is not, probably a hotbed for your
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
legal talent, I guess I would say.
And especially legal talent with experience in federal lands
Right.
issues,
Yeah. And then they have to find those lawyers over the 4th of July. I think their hearing was July 8th or something like that. So it was like right away they had to do it. They go into this court and find out that they can't talk to each other, find out they have to give their guns away. It was just like everything just piled on the most that they possibly could. See the whole thing happen, and probably if they had input on the people making it happen, it might not have turned out the way it did. But
So what do you think happened to Lenders? Is he still employed by the Forest Service? Is he still in the area? What do you think's going to happen? Does he have any, you know, we know he has a responsibility, but will there be any consequences for his actions?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, when you think about it and you hear their stories, and I don't know how people. I mean, he's like an evil person to me.
Must
Like
be.
to take that young family and to force them to. Before they went in the trial, they talked about how they might not have, they could have been arrested at the trial, I mean, if,
Whoa.
and so they had to go in and tell their kids that they're facing they could end up in prison, all of that kind of stuff. The way he did that, and to take their guns away and stuff like that, just, I mean, it's like the first two constitutional rights, right? Freedom of
Yeah,
speech, freedom of, to
absolutely.
bear arms. Those were just ripped right from them because of this fence that they had never moved. It's
Absolutely.
to be that guy that did that, or anyone else involved. I mean, there should be a full scale investigation,
Absolutely.
and I feel like, you know, I hope we're not beating it. We talked about this so much, but I think people should demand it. Like Rollins
Well,
just
if
can't.
they
I
don't,
mean, it's enough to dismiss the charges, and it's wonderful it happened the whole way it happened. Couldn't be happier. But who says this isn't going to happen again?
well, that's the whole thing. It may sound like we're beating a horse to death here, which we kind of are. But the thing about this whole case is it set a precedent. Even though, like with the Hammonds and the Bundys and the Hage family, those were all very important issues. But this was an attack on a very small family operation over 25 acres. And who says it's not going to happen again? I mean, that's why we have to get it into the public, make sure that the authorities know the severity of the overreach and get the policies changed. I mean, I don't care where Lunders is, whoever did it, the policies have to be changed. And they forget that they work for the people. And so that policy is number one, that they are there to serve the people. And we've got to get on top of that right now. And hopefully they are. But God bless the mods because they have endured a very, very, very long year of worry and strain, all the while they were doing their work, doing the chores every morning, going through the winter, trying to get the calves branded, trying to feed their community. They sell a lot of product
Yeah, and
into
it
their
goes back to that
community.
field too. They
Yeah,
aren't able to feed their animals because they weren't
exactly.
able to use that field.
Exactly.
And
So
that should
your
be
whole
worth something
management plan
too.
has to change, right?
That should be worth something too. 2 years of not being able to use
Oh,
the place that you
absolutely.
grow the
There is a
feed for
monetary.
all your animals.
Absolutely. There's an opportunity cost there, lost opportunity cost there that needs to be made up, not to mention their pain and suffering. And I don't know where that's going. I just hope that they get out of this and then we can start, certainly they can help lead us into educating the people about these problems in the West.
Mm.
There you go.
I feel like you keep putting, I don't want to put pressure on them. Like you're like, they got to lead us now.
No, I'm not saying they got to lead us, but I can tell you right now, Heather Maude is a natural leader, and she has been involved in politics. She's a great writer. She's a very talented person, and probably equally as talented as Charles. But Charles is quieter. He's more laid back. He's set back. He watches people, and he organizes his thoughts that way. And I think he's probably one of the smartest people you'll meet. But Heather has that natural leadership ability. And not only does she have that, but she's extremely intelligent. And these experiences have given them a lot of wisdom. And that wisdom, you can't hold that wisdom in. You have to help other people.
Yeah, and I mean,
Sorry
that's
about that
really
pressure.
the thing about the whole issue is how much I've learned. I feel like from the
Oh,
whole
yeah.
thing, I've learned so much about federal lands and all this kind of different stuff, and the Forest Service and Small Tracts Act and all that kind of stuff, and even even on that podcast. That's the thing about the podcast. I think it's important for everyone to go back and listen to it and
You
learn
bet.
about what the federal government can actually do to you and completely take away your rights for absolutely no reason. I didn't even know that if you got like if you had charges against you, they can take your guns away before. I mean, I feel like there's some circumstance, but that's just anybody that has charges against them, it seemed like.
I don't know.
You're not allowed to be around guns. They said they went through a whole thing of like whether they were
Questions?
a flight risk, all
Yeah.
this. They were treated like they were drug dealers. That was the interesting thing. But other
One thing,
interesting, I think
go ahead.
the other thing that's been in the news lately that kind of coincides with what we're talking about. He talked about how because I was asking him about his family history in the neighborhood and stuff, and how his family lost land in the Depression and the government took it over, and that's how that Buffalo Gap National Grasslands
Yep.
was created. And so
Yep.
that's something that I didn't know about, and I actually had talked to him later on more about that because Heather being from Wyoming, where you always talk about the checkerboard, it's such a
Hmm.
checkerboard there, and in that their little spot there is kind of checkerboarded where there's little chunks. I did that video about Patagonia, and that land goes from one federal area up to two small other little federal areas.
Yep.
And I'm sure, yeah, I didn't realize that that had been purchased back from ranchers during the Depression to kind of
It
give them an
wasn't
out.
purchased. It wasn't purchased. It was just
It was taken over.
during the Depression, the Dirty Thirties, and the Dust Bowl started up in South Dakota and come down the eastern plains of Colorado and Nebraska and into Texas. Well, people that had homesteaded that land were just getting going, right? I mean, the Homesteading Act, say, let's take, for example, in Southeast Colorado, they surveyed the land in 1909 to 1914. That's when the survey markers, that's what it says on the survey markers. Well, these people were just getting started homesteading. And, in the whole scheme of things, 20 years is not a long time. Say if you homesteaded in 1914, 1934 was 20 years later. That's not a long time to be in business. And so these people got into the 30s. The market crashed in 29, the drought starts, and it's just a terrible situation. And people don't understand an already high desert, arid climate in the plains, high plains of the central United States is tough to make a living on when you have, you know, say Crowley County, Colorado, 9 to 11 inches of precipitation per year is what we get. Well, they were just learning about the country and it's hard anyway. Well, then when you don't get any rain, you can't produce your crops. One of the best books to understand this, to read, is called the Worst Hard Time. And those people, like in my country, Jim, those people up and left. They just left. And to this day, you can find, I've found bed frames on our ranches, wash tubs, wagon wheels, everything that they just had to get out of there because there was nothing left there for them. And so that left that land empty. Nobody paid a tax on it, nothing. And then they just, that go lets the Forest Service, which I don't know how that exactly worked, but if they had to go in and pay the back taxes and take over the land, but it wasn't just the Forest Service, people could do that too, and that's how some great big ranchers took over, right? I mean, they would go in there and pay the back taxes, and they just start accumulating this land. So it's not unusual, and that seems to be what happened up there during that time.
Yeah, but is that what happened with the majority of like checkerboard federal land?
I don't think so.
So why is it so checkerboarded?
Well, let's take for Wyoming for example, and somebody can correct me on this. The way I understood it was the railroad. When the railroad went through Wyoming, they checkerboarded the land so many miles out each direction from the railroad to pay for the land to pay for the railroad, right? And that's why you have all these state sections. And I think I don't know how big they are. I don't know if it's townships or if it's literal sections, right? So in southeast Colorado, every sixth section is the state school section, and that's where they would plant a local school on, or that was the idea of it. Not every section had a school on it. So every state is different, but I think it was railroad through Wyoming that created that checkerboard issue, and then it belonged to the state.
Hmm.
Somebody
That's
can
something we
educate us
should
on that.
keep digging in. Yeah.
Yeah, we should. I learned a lot of it in when I was going to college in Wyoming, but I had forgotten a lot of it. But it's very, very interesting.
Yeah. See, these kind of topics, sometimes people will be like, you guys should be, but these kind of topics just kind of come up through conversation. And
Yeah, they absolutely
sorry, we
do.
don't know everything, but we'll work on it.
I don't know anything.
All right. What do you, oh, Biden. I
Well,
guess to
wait a
get,
minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. While we're on this issue of
yeah, this, the whole
these
thing
lands
ties
issues,
together.
we need to, this all ties together because there is I have long said for a long time since the Trump administration has taken back the White House or however you want to say that. These organizations, these ENGOs, NGOs, are doubling down, and that's exactly what they're doing. So we need to talk about Colorado because Colorado is a political mess. And last week we talked about a ballot initiative called the Colorado Wildlife and Biodiversity Act, which would create this commission of appointed people to really take over statutory policy on state, federal, and private property through conservation or the Endangered Species Act, and it was very corrupt. And we saw through it. We're starting to educate people on it, and it was a very dangerous situation. So that is in committee now, of ballot proposal called the Colorado Wildlife and Biodiversity Act. Okay, that would tie up land. It's
Why is it
that's
in
what it.
committee? I thought it was a ballot
Well,
initiative.
they have to go to a committee to be put on the ballot. Okay, to
Okay.
make sure.
So it's,
Excuse me.
they've got the signatures. It goes to committee.
No,
Oh,
it goes to committee. Then the way I understand it, then they have to go get the signatures. They will get the signatures to get it on the ballot. The committee, I think, determines if it's a single issue. We have to be a one issue ballot uh, initiative in the state of Colorado. One single issue on the ballot. Okay, so that's probably going to be pushed through, and that is a land taking. That is a private property rights issue. So that starts in Colorado. So on the very same this month, the Colorado State Land Board, one of their leaders. Okay, now the Colorado State Land Board is comprised of appointed members by the governor to manage the state's 2.8 million surface acres 4 million subsurface and mineral acres. Okay. And in Colorado, that income off of those acres is supposed to constitutionally is deriving income and revenue for the schools of Colorado. One of their leaders retired, and they have replaced that person with a gal by the name of Rose Marino. Rose Marino is her name, Nicole Rose Marino, and she is the sole finalist for the director of the state land board. Okay. Now, it's not unusual that we have this turnover at the state land board. I've known some of those directors. But the problem with Rose Marino, and she's got to be confirmed yet, which I think is June 11th and 12th. She is
Spit it out.
she's a rewilding
She's a
ex,
crazy.
she's a rewilding expert,
She's a
right?
nut.
She's an advocate for rewilding. And let me just read you this. She said they say Rose Marino is the governor's policy advisor. Now that's Governor Polis uh, for wildlife, agriculture, and rural economic development. She is a member of the Rewilding Institute's Rewilding Leadership Council and founded the Southern Plains Land Trust, of which she is the executive director. She was previously a scientist with Wild Earth Guardians. This is only going to go downhill.
Well, explain. You keep going, but you need to explain what rewilding. Define it.
I'm going to explain that right now. So rewilding is the purchasing of agricultural land that is preferably contiguous to return it to what people want to call, like in the Northern Plains in Montana, the American Serengeti. So it's just a return to its natural state, getting all agriculture production off of it, all mineral mining, energy extraction, that all goes away. But she is promoting purchasing ranches to convert to private wildlife refuges. And they're ripe for the picking, she wrote, in bringing back the American Serengeti, given that the region has seen declining human populations since the Dust Bowl of the 1930s. Much of the habitat remains intact and prices are low. Okay, so they recognize these advocates, these extremists recognize that land is cheap in the Southern Plains because it takes so many acres to run a cow. And so they are coming for the land to rewild. Now, the Southern Plains Land Trust was created here a while back, and they're putting, I think they've got, oh gosh, how many acres do they have together? 80,000 acres that they've put together in southeast or the Southern Plains, some of it in the southeast corridor. And this was when we heard about the wildlife corridors going from southeast Colorado up to the Front Range. So she is a part of that. She is an advocate of that. And, here we have this person of questionable motives going to be running the state land board, oversight by Polis picked influenced people. That is a problem because there is a lot of agriculture production on these state lands. I've told you in 1999, the state land board bought, the old Box T Chico Basin Ranch. That's how we lost that. They've got, I don't know how many acres up through there, probably close to 500,000 acres up through in one contiguous deal that is still leased by ranchers. But they're moving over to that recreation, education, wildlife type of income. And I feel like the ranchers are going to lose. And so on the heels of this hiring of this lady by the name of Rose Mario, they have created or brought up this new law that would take all of these state lands and really promote more use in the way of recreation, education, and wildlife biodiversity. And the funny thing about this whole deal is that here we have the Colorado Wildlife and Biodiversity Protection Act. It's going to be on, it likely will go on the ballot. And then you have this rewilding advocate that's been hired by the state land board. And then you have this House Bill 1332 that would create a 21-person committee, and it would be called the State Trust Lands Conservation and Recreation Working Group that will focus on how to better infuse conservation, community needs, and recreation into the land board's mission. The group will make recommendations to the land board by September of 2026. The goal is to better balance how the land board generates revenue with protecting and conserving lands for recreation, open space, and wildlife. Um, here's the irony of the whole thing. We have these ag organizations who had to sit at the table with all of these ENGOs, and they created land trusts like Colorado Cattlemen's Land Trust. That would be one of them. And now these ag organizations, who rightfully so probably thought I was crazy, are going to have to figure out a way to defend themselves on these lands. Not only on
Do you think they will? I feel like they'll go along with it.
well, not only on these state and federal lands, but private property. With the Colorado Wildlife and Biodiversity Protection Act, you have an advocate just being hired that oversees 2.8 million acres, 2.8 million surface acres that she's going to have control of and implement her agenda, which I don't know how much education, recreation, and open space diversity pays for schools. I know income off of cattle, mining, oil extraction, that all does. So where's the money going to come from for these schools? And then they're going to focus on more conservation on these state lands. It is so incredibly fork-tongued. Everybody's speaking out every side of their mouth. And here's the deal. You can't serve two gods. The ag organizations are going to have to come together, and they're going to have to decide which way they're going to go. Are they going to sit at the table with the ENGOs, the people who have actually said cattle are killing the planet, that beef is the most pressing issue on earth? Are they going to sit at the table with them, or are they going to take a hard stand? And that's what every state is going to have to decide. Colorado is setting a precedent. We're in very dangerous territory in Colorado right now.
I feel like are they going to keep sitting at the table? Like they've already decided they're sitting at that table, or are they going to get up and walk away? You know what I mean? And fight against
That's
the whole deal.
that's the choice that the producers have to
Right.
have
Like
to make.
you said Colorado Cattlemen's Land Trust. I'm
Hmm.
guessing that's Colorado Cattlemen's Association.
Well, it's a subsidiary of Colorado
Right.
Cattlemen's Association. We saw where that land trust uh, through US spending.gov uh, got millions and millions and millions of dollars, where the Colorado Cattlemen's Association didn't. They're membership driven, but it's a problem. And
I
where
feel
this
like
goes, I don't know.
Colorado's a problem. Well,
Colorado is a
who's worse
problem on
now,
every level.
Colorado or California? I saw somebody ask that on Twitter, and it's kind of like, well, because they just passed some law where if you call misgender, like if you,
Colorado did.
yeah, like if you call Caitlyn Jenner Bruce Jenner, right?
Yeah.
Like say somebody's old name before they change their name, that you can be like prosecuted for it.
That's hate speech. It's considered hate
Yeah.
speech. They just passed, or I don't know if it passed, but they considered a law that would, if you're not uplifting your child's ability to, your little girl's ability to act like a boy, or your little boy's ability to act like a girl, then you go to jail. They take your kids and you go to jail. This is unreal what Colorado has done, and it's just getting worse. One of my buddies who works up at the Capitol in Colorado said, I went up there last year, and he said, Shad, this is the den of Satan. He said, it's worse than you can even imagine. But
How did we get there in Colorado? Weed?
no, California, um,
They moved in.
East Coast and West Coast started moving in the early 1990s. I know like by 2010, 3 million people had moved to the Front Range of Colorado, bringing with them a different culture. And that's exactly what happened. And then, all of these rich people come to Colorado to the mountains because it's beautiful and they don't understand ag production or anything like that or anything. I always say Colorado is politically split, morally split, and spiritually split. And that's the truth. We got to get Governor Polis elected. We got a lot of out of state money in there. We need to stop all that
When's he up for election?
next year.
So 26?
I think 26. Yes, sir.
You think you could get somebody with half a brain in there? I mean, that's the main problem for people that don't know. His husband, is it? Or boyfriend? Is a PETA member or
Oh
just
yeah,
an animal rights
he's a
nut?
radical environmental activist or an animal rights activist. I would think sometimes I think Governor Polis has a brain. Sometimes I think that, and then sometimes I'm like, how can this get any worse? But the culture is changed, and we're seeing it in a lot of different states, like Texas, Arizona. They want out of that mess in California, but they bring with them that personal culture that they're used to, and it just changes.
Yeah, where
And then yeah,
they can only vote for one party, things
that's
like
right.
that. Like even and so I guess if you want to go into that, and I think this ties into everything, is what continues to come out about Joe Biden. And I mean, it was the Biden administration that prosecuted the mods. I mean, and people still defend and they hate Trump because, it's just kind of like the people who should be the most mad, I keep thinking of, and they're not at the Joe Biden deal, that he really wasn't president, and we don't know who was president. It was this
Exactly.
team of radicals that were running the country that were never
Absolutely.
elected. The Democrat, if you're a Democrat, you should be, furious over this deal because you've
I,
been lied to over and over. But it's like they're still going after Trump, and they hate Trump way more than they do the people who have lied to them over and over and over. Going into this cancer thing where he's had cancer. He said he had cancer, and did you see that speech where he said he had cancer? In 2022, he's giving a speech and he's saying, and I get it. He always misspeaks, but still, like he said, I have cancer. He goes, the oil or something. When I was a kid, it made a sheen on the windshield, and that's why I have cancer, and everybody in the neighborhood has cancer. He said that in 2022.
well, I can assure you, if they come out and said it's in his bones, prostate cancer is metastasized to his bones now. He had it about 8 years ago.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
because your dad died, right?
My dad,
He had
my
it eight
dad,
years.
no, my dad had it 12 years. He was diagnosed at 59 years old with prostate cancer. Back then, they cut him open and took the prostate out physically. And then he had, I think he had radiation. And then about, what was it, 12 years later, he, they were just doing a routine check and it had metastasized into the bone already. So he was supposedly cancer free for like 12 years. And then he kind of got sick and we took him up there to Denver and did a bone scan and it was all over in his bones. And they just said, there's nothing we can do for it. And 8 months later, he was dead.
Yeah. And to go back and say, I see this, there's people who are like, Joe Biden served the country. You shouldn't say anything bad about him. Like, okay, I don't like that he has cancer. Don't like that he's dying. He's a scumbag. Sorry. I mean, he is a piece of trash because of what he did. And talking about serving this country, who do you think gained more in the 50 years of service? Did the United States gain more from Joe Biden, or did Joe Biden gain more from the United States
Yeah.
and his drug
Yeah.
addicted son and all that? I mean, it just goes into everything. And sorry if you're a hardcore Democrat that thinks he's a great guy, but he just spent 4 years lying right to your face. His wife Kamala
I don't
Harris.
think he knew he was lying though, Jim. I
I
really
don't
don't
know.
think he was. But here I agree with you wholeheartedly on everything you just said. But I will take the other side and say the Rhino Republicans are just as bad.
Oh
They're just
yeah.
as nefarious. They're just as deceitful. They are bad, bad, bad people.
And it goes into everything like we're talking about. Those kind of people can get elected, and that's where we really need to change. Rhino Republicans, Jared Polis, the kind of people that allow what happened to the Maude family to go on.
Well,
Like
it
the
seems
reason
like.
you
Go
talk
ahead.
about Travis Lunders and fixing that problem, but the main problem is we have to get elected officials that actually care about the people
We do, Jim, but
elected.
that's my whole point when I talk about the war on beef. We have to end this pay to play system. We have to make all of this illegal because the very rich and elitists across the world, not just in America but across the world, are the ones that are putting these people in power and positions with the dollars that they have. And so this pay to play system must end somehow. I'm not an expert. I don't know how, other than just to create bills and say, here's what's legal, here's what's not legal, and stop it. Because a guy like me and you, or good, wholesome people that are good leaders in their communities, they can't even afford to run for a congressional seat, right? It takes everything they have. And if you don't have a certain agenda that you want to focus on, it seems like all the bad agendas everybody wants to promote and give money to. The global elites actually do that. Soros actually does that, right? He'll get right down to the local level and give these bad people, these un-Americans, the money. And so we somehow have to make that illegal and stop that stuff.
Yeah, we've created such a system, and that goes back into this public land deal. Um, so we talked about last week they put some amendment into the budget where Nevada and Utah can sell off a certain amount of public land.
Right. Right.
And me and you have went back and forth on it, and I don't really like the idea of selling public land. But I actually talked to the mods a little bit about this, and they were telling me about the checkerboard issue and all of that. But I guess I'm not against selling public lands as long as it goes to the right people. Like we've talked about, Nature Conservancy got $500 million and they're buying up tens of thousands of acres of money. Like there has to be a requirement. Like if you have received a certain amount of federal funds, you shouldn't be able to buy land in the US, I don't think.
Agree.
Right? Like they
Agree.
should put those stipulations in there. And the most obvious one, if you have the grazing permit on that area, you should get first right
Absolutely.
because that will destroy ranches if they
And I'll
take
tell
that.
you,
But
that's
I think but then again, the lot of the land I think they're talking about for Utah and Nevada is stuff that they want to develop. And it's not like a checkerboard type of, it's allotments that are close to town or possibly have military infrastructure on them, things like
mhm.
that.
Well, Jim, one of the really dangerous aspects of all of this is our food supply. If we keep putting all this land, and listen, you can say what you want about the high plains or the central part of the United States. We're very productive. We produce a lot of food for the nation and the world. And if we keep taking it out of production, number one, we're going to have a food crisis. Number two, we're going to see all of these communities completely die up because there's nobody to hold the tax base together. And we're really walking on shaky ground. You know, Southern Plains Land Trust is an example. Who's giving the money to them? That's a 501. I think it's a 501c3 or it's a nonprofit. So somebody's got to be giving them money. Where are they getting that money? From ENGOs, from those people who are members of ENGOs. And we cannot compete with it. And it falls right into their narrative. If I can buy a ranch beside me for $500 an acre, they can run it up to $1,000 an acre. Doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah. Um, you want to talk about that? This kind of goes into the Brooke Rollins update. She
Yeah.
put out a 10-point plan. She had a small business roundtable with a small farmer roundtable with small farmers and put out this plan all about small farmers. And they talk about, I kind of skimmed through it, read most of it. And they do talk about land prices, but I feel like they're not really attacking. Like land prices just need to come down. They're overinflated, and a huge part of the a reason why they're overinflated is because of the federal government and the policies.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that was really addressed like it should have been. But I think it's a great start. I mean, for them to even say that and to mainly focus on
Reentry.
small
Yeah.
farms and ranches and come out with this program. I mean, you still got to remember we're like what 4 months in on this deal, in this administration, and so I think it's a good step in there. Most of this stuff is like make loans easy to access, get rid of red tape. If you're supposed to get money, make it so that you don't have to wait a long time to get the money. Like we talked about that ECAP or whatever it is, the money that's coming out now. It shouldn't take a long time to get. Um, and then they talked about climate smart commodities. I would like to see them do way more on that deal, but it did make me feel like I got to thinking like, you know what? I'm pretty sure I was the first one to say
You
anything
were.
about climate smart
You
commodities.
were.
And
You
so
absolutely were. But
it was like,
what are they
oh,
going to do? They've
there's
changed the
something.
name of it. So what are they going to do with it? Because Farm Journal right now is pushing the climate change sustainability narrative, and they've got classes and Zoom meetings and all this stuff. And I'm like, this is all coming from that money. So I guess that goes back into that doubling down where the Trump administration could not pay him because they were under contract. Is that right?
So what I'm guessing, but so what they did was say that 65% of the money, which I don't know why they're doing that. I mean, why not 70%? Why not 90% of $40 million? But they said that percentage of the money has to go to actual producers because, Iowa Soybean Association got 95 million, ADM,
Mhm.
which is one of the biggest agriculture
Yep.
corporations in the world, got 90 some million. And so 65% of that has to be, the whole reason for it, like I say, the reason that program was created was to create is kind of a working model of how farmers and ranchers will measure, monitor, report, and verify their greenhouse gases. That's why the program was created to put together that infrastructure. And so they're supposed to pay this out to these farmers who are measuring, monitoring, reporting, all that stuff. I don't know what they're doing on that now. Like, I would love to see USDA. I'm sure those people that created the program are still at USDA unless they're,
Absolutely, they are. And
and they're
I'm just
probably dug in as deep as they can be.
absolutely.
I feel like they should just hire me. I've done much on the climate smart commodity deal, and just say, gut this thing.
Well, half the time I think that we really are going to change this deal, and half the time I'm like, we're not changing nothing. I mean,
Yeah, I
this
know.
I just
Because
I
when you read that, it's like, why is this thing still in place?
yeah,
Why not just take it? I suppose it's because of the contracts and the wording in them. But I mean, she talks about getting rid of DEI. There's DEI in every one of those contracts. You had to talk about
every one
how
of them.
you're going to, the minorities you're going to serve and all this kind of stuff. Um, and I just don't know how they can still put together like this AgriWeb, which is your EID app that you monitor your cattle and where they're going, and then you figure out your carbon sequestration through your app and how much they're getting rotated and all that. Like, what's happening with that outfit that's getting all this federal money?
What
And
about the
because the
trust in food
reason,
program?
what's that?
What about the same thing with the trust in food program?
Well, that
Same thing.
AgriWeb's a subcontractor under that.
Right.
And so, like, what is I mean, are they still putting together this infrastructure where
Yes.
we are going to be forced? I mean, if the
I
next Joe
just saw it
Biden,
yesterday, and I wish I would have printed all this stuff off. I did. I just saw it yesterday that they're literally doubling down.
yeah, and if the next Joe Biden gets elected and all this stuff's already lined out, like here's how monitor your carbon, then they can just put it right into place.
And that's
So
one of
what
the
needs to
things.
stop is the measuring and the monitoring. That's what needs to happen. Like
And the verifying. The
right.
verifying is very dangerous.
Oh yeah, I mean the whole thing. But if
The
you
whole
can't
thing's
measure, you can't
dangerous.
monitor. I mean, I don't care if you measure, but the whole monitoring, uh,
Yeah, the verification is subjective at the very lowest level. I mean,
right.
you're never going it's the same old mantra of continuous improvement from the GRSB or the USRSB, which by the way have doubled down as well. Um, in the from the UN Sustainable Development. I
Well,
mean,
then our beef checkoff just put up their three pillars. I mean, it's
yes.
everything. They're definitely not backing
You
off.
know, President Trump, he says, well, we're going to get rid of this climate stuff off the website at USDA. It's not gone.
Well,
I
even getting
know.
rid of the name of it, like that doesn't change anything. Like you can call it whatever you want, but
Yeah.
it's a
It's still the
program that's
climate
doing
smart
this.
commodity program.
Right. Tell us that it's not doing this anymore.
That's exactly right. And you know, here then we have I seen where they appointed a guy that we've talked about on this show, a regenerative guy at USDA to head to serve somehow. I tried to get confirmation of how he's going to serve in the at the NRCS, but he's got the same mantra: sustainable development, continuous improvement. They send him to DC, push out those subsidy checks.
Yeah, that's the
Nothing is
mantra.
changing, is what I'm saying. I see changes on one hand, and on the other hand, I see no changes, Jim.
That's the mantra of that. What's the guy's name? I forget.
Jimmy Emmons.
Jimmy Emmons. Like the whole mantra of this sustainability people is give me money, give me money, give me money.
Yep.
And we'll do whatever you want. And so then if you're not one of those people, that's how these programs get put in place. So we got to stop the programs. But
Got to stop the
you
flow
know,
of
it's
money,
like I
Jim.
said, we're 4 months in. It's a start.
No, I think I
Lonesome
really
Lands will
understand.
contract with the federal government if they want us to gut the climate smart commodity. That's what,
I think it's a
right?
great. I think it's a great idea. You're the one. You probably understand the climate smart commodity program, or I can't remember the new name, better than anybody in the federal government. I guarantee you do, except the people who come up with it. I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, right. Yeah, I've read what they write about it, not what they sit back and, you know, they secretly their secret priorities. One thing I want to talk about is this global map that they're making. That's still going too, I think, which is a map where they tell you how you need to farm and ranch, and it's what Farm Journal is in on, and all
Yep.
these other outfits. I need to write that down.
I forgot about that.
I've seen it. It's still a big deal. It's still a priority for USDA. They fired a lot of people, but not near enough.
Listen, I'm just going to tell you, they probably have a turnover every year of 20,000 people. So
Yeah, and they got rid of 15.
the 15,000 people that resign, that's nothing.
Yeah, that's your regular retirement.
Yep.
What else you got?
Well, you want to talk about the New World screwworm really quick?
Yeah, we didn't get into that.
We're seeing a lot of news on the New World screwworm, and I think it's a festering issue. I think it's going to get bad. I don't know how bad, but I think, we've seen NCBA and USDA and all these people having. Ron Hayes and NCBA had a conversation on it the other day, and it says, well, and they say, well, it's 700 miles south of the border. My contention is it's probably a whole lot closer than 700 miles south of the U.S. Mexico border. Now, we have been working on this since 1966. The United States has really led the way in a partnership with um,
Panama?
Panama to eradicate the New World screwworm, and we have eradicated it with some flare ups. The way I understand, with some flare ups now and then. In 2016, we had a flare up in Florida with it, and it was immediately, within 1 year, totally eradicated. And what we do is there's a facility called Copeg. I think it's Copeg facility in Panama that we they grow these New World screwworm flies or larvae, and then they irradiate the males, and then they turn them out. They fly over,
Sterilize
up,
the male, so
they
the males can't
sterilize the
reproduce.
males. They sterilize the males. They can still breed, but then they can't reproduce, right? So the egg has not been fertilized.
And once a female is bred, then and lays their eggs, they die, right?
That's
So they're
well, no,
laying unfertilized eggs and then
yes,
they die. And so
yeah,
there's no reproduction. And we drop those flies in Panama.
yeah, that's right.
Sorry to interrupt, Shad, but
No, I like it.
I felt like we just got to get it out there. And so
Well,
because Panama's so narrow, right?
the Darien Gap.
Yeah, we're able to just centralize it there. That's
That's
and
how
not
we've
let it come
kept
north.
it. That's how we've kept it at bay. Now I don't know what has been the change in why all of a sudden it's an issue, and back up here, we've controlled it. You know, I guess at certain points in the year we make 21 flights down a day or a week. I'm
Dumping
sorry, a
flies.
week down through there, and at one time they can drop up to 110 billion flies.
Isn't that
That's how
amazing?
it's
There's all this stuff
amazing.
going on that we've never even like you
I
never
know
even
that we
think
never
of.
even
Like
thought of, right?
there's
And we've
some
been,
pilot loading up a billion flies in his plane,
I
flying to
know.
Panama, dumping them out, and this has been going on for 60
Well,
years.
my question is how do they herd them? Herd like HERD.
Yeah,
How do they herd
I
them?
don't think they're hurting them. I think they probably keep them
Well,
in.
anyway, we have been on top of that. So the news is that it's coming closer, and we're not on top of it now. Now, I will tell you, I read a deal last night, and it says currently, this is as of January of 2025, the New World screwworm remains in the eradication stage. This is from a Panamanian newspaper, with incidences of positive cases in all the provinces of Panama except for the Gunayala region. Um, in Panama, in January 11th, Panama had 25,000 cases of it. Um, and then it kind of flows on all through that. But as it comes forward or comes northward, a lot less cases. But it is something that we need to worry about. And John Cornyn out of Texas, along with Ted Cruz, Ben Ray Lujan from New Mexico, and Tony Gonzalez from Texas, they introduced the strengthening tactics to obstruct the population of screwworms, or the Stop the Screwworms Act, which would authorize funds to build a facility to breed these sterile screwworm flies in Texas. And um, it's probably a pretty good deal. We probably need to do that because Texas and New Mexico has a long border, and we need to get that done. So good for Cornyn and those other and Lujan, but I think the most pressing thing right now is I think they're a little bit worried because they closed the border, as everybody knows, and I'm all for it. Close that son of a buck. But who says a fly can't cross the border, right? Or whatever
Yeah,
whatever
that's the thing.
happens,
How
you know.
close does it have to be for a fly to get across? I mean, they're worried now at 700 miles. But I mean,
Well,
that's the other thing. It gets so wide. What the reason Panama worked because you could drop
yes,
them right there. It gets so wide
exactly.
you just can't drop flies over the whole
Well,
width
and
of
my
the mission.
question is how did they get into Florida? I mean, uh, did they? If you look at the
Are they
map,
in Cuba?
Panama, yeah, Panama and Florida and Cuba, they're not too far from there, right? So I'm assuming they either come on ships
Hopped on a
or
boat, just like the
come on the
rest of the
boat, and that's
Cubans.
how they get it. But we successfully eradicated that. I hope they get it under control. I'm glad they closed the border, and she seems to be taking the issue. Secretary Rollins seems to be taking the issue fairly seriously. I have never seen the screwworm issue, but I heard my dad talk about it, and a lot of these, especially the Texas cowboys, they would spend all summer and fall and spring just doctoring these cattle, and it was hard work. So
How would they doctor them? Spray them with something?
no,
Iodine in the wound or
they had and somebody will correct us on this. There was a paste that you had to put
oh,
in the wound, and it would kill him.
Lonesome History, brought to you by lonesomelands.com. Go there, click subscribe, go to the visit the store, buy a shirt. We pointed them north, which is a book that just needed to be talked about because we've talked about a number of these books and you can't go on without talking about this one. I just thought, what do we need to talk about? Well, we haven't talked about pointing them north yet. This is an integral part of every person's library. I've had a number of people email me say, "Oh, I love those book recommendations." Well, you can't get I can't recommend a book enough. If you want to learn about the days of the cattle trail, um, Teddy Blue
Wasn't
Abbott,
Yeah, I was gonna say, wasn't that Teddy Blue Abbott?
yeah, Teddy Blue Abbott, and I just opened it up and I found something we've talked a lot about
What?
with the Johnson County War and everything else. He's quoted quite a bit in that other book with about the Johnson County War.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'll just read you a part, which this is what we had talked about, the rich people from the East coming in and
Yeah.
investing. He says, rich men. So Teddy Blue came up the cattle trail. He was born in Nebraska. I think he shot somebody or something, got into a problem, and headed to Texas and never came back. And then he got in with a trail driving outfit, ended up driving cattle clear to Montana, became good buddies with Charlie Russell, married one of Granville Stewart's daughter, which Granville Stewart was
Wow.
one of the first ranchers in Montana and one of the biggest before the big die up. And
1886.
yeah, and so he spent the rest of his days up there. And so this person, Helena Huntington Smith, sat down with Teddy Blue, and they put this book together. He kind of told her all his stories, and she wrote the book. And it's one of the most, I think, and when you watch the westerns, it's kind of like Trail Drivers of Texas. You'll recognize if you watch a lot of cowboy movies, you'll
Yeah.
recognize certain things in the book, certain names, different things. A lot of the people making the movies will borrow stuff out of this book. I got a question for you.
Yes.
You ever watch Horizon, the Kevin Costner, the new Western cowboy
No.
movie?
No.
I was gonna go to it. It's 3 hours long. It's
In
chapter
the
one. It's like gonna be a series, is the
Oh,
plan. And
in
everybody,
the
it came out in
theater?
the theater. Yeah, it came out in the theater like last summer. And I was gonna
Okay.
go. Everyone said it was terrible, so slow, so boring, all this stuff. And so I didn't end up going, and I never even ended up seeing it. It's on Netflix now. I
Okay.
finally sat down. So it's 3 hours. I never sit down for 3 hours at a time.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, I'll start it. And then when I had something to, and then I just kept going back to it. I loved it. I thought it was a great movie.
Was it good?
Yeah, I thought it was great. But I just love, I mean, the thing of it is, like, they've come so far in movie making that they can
Yeah.
make everything, like, even, like, you, when you have a saddle if it's a movie from the 1880s and you have a saddle that's from the 1880s, even if it's just one and the other ones are newer, like, still, that kind of stuff just gets me I just like to see how things were.
The authenticity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even like the way they make the buildings, different things like that.
Yes.
I mean, just to see it. And like they had a mining camp and old cabins and all that kind of stuff. It
That's kind of where I give Taylor Sheridan credit for recognizing the style of the day, right? And even, in 1883 and 1923, it was all very authentic. I loved it. It matched. It went with the time. And then in Yellowstone, he's got the horses have improved. And, I mean, he got some really good horses in Yellowstone, super good horses, and it just matches the day. I like that. He did a good job on that.
we'll have to we'll have to talk. So I liked Horizon. I can't wait for the second part to come out because it's like a multi-series. But it
Okay.
did so bad, and he spent a ton of money on it. They're trying to figure out the best way to do it, I guess, from now on. I don't know. Anyway, we'll talk about 1923 sometime, but we should talk about that sometime. There's a lot to talk about there.
Yeah.
Anyway, Teddy Blue Abbott, he's cowboying in Montana. He says rich men's sons from the east were nothing new as far as I was concerned. The range in the 80s was as full of them as dogs' hair of fleas, and some of them were good fellows and some were damn fools. Quite a few, like Teddy Roosevelt and Oliver Wallop, who got to be Earl of Portsmouth later, made good hands, and everybody liked them. But this Marmaduke was one of the most helpless men I ever saw. He had no manners at all around camp. He was just a damn nuisance from start to finish. I remember one time he was supposed to be helping Dick with the pack horse, and he tied the knots wrong, and we lost the meat. Well, I wouldn't hold that against him, but that night when we started to unpack, we missed it. And I went back with him almost to where we broke camp in the morning before we found it. Then a storm come up and it was late and we couldn't find camp. I fired off three shots with my six shooter, hoping Dick would answer. And Marmaduke, he was the kind that was always asking questions because he didn't know how to use his eyes and ears, and he didn't have any brains. And he piped up, "What are you firing at?" I says, "I'm taking a couple shots at God Almighty." He says, "Oh, please don't say that. I'd rather you shoot me than hear you blasphemy."
Yeah. Well, I'm like, why did they not recognize that their meat came off?
No,
I mean,
that's what. Well, he probably was leading the pack horse. I don't know. Um,
somebody should have heard that or felt it or something. I don't know.
well, who knows how much meat they were packing?
Yeah, exactly.
So it says he couldn't even ride to Black Butte. Now, Black Butte is a great big lone mountain that sticks up out of the prairie so you can see it for miles around. And it doesn't just take no Jim Bridger or Buffalo Bill to find it. I forgot to mention that along with our other troubles on this trip, we turned the bulls loose first on our own home range, which was just exactly where we was told to turn them loose. But it seems that was all a mistake. We should have taken them up to the Missouri. So we had to gather them all over again. We were still gathering them, and we got a little way north of the DHS Bull Ranch. So the DHS was I can't the S was for Stewart, Granville
Okay.
Stewart's ranch. So that's who he was working for then. At the foot of the Black Butte, when we run out of flour, so we told Marmaduke to get on his horse and go back to the cook and the bull at the bull ranch and get some. He didn't have anything to do, only look after gentle horses and the bulls we'd already gathered. While we were rounding them up, I told him how to get there. I said, you ride straight for Black Butte, and there'll be a half breed trail right at the foot of it, and you follow that to the bull ranch. He started out in the morning, and at 5 o'clock, he was back at camp and no flour. He said, "Ted, I can't go to Black Butte. I just can't go to it." I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "I don't know. I can't go to it. It keeps getting further away."
Oh my gosh.
I caught up a horse and I started out then 5 o'clock. I rode to the bull ranch 25 miles and got the flour, and I borrowed another horse from the foreman and got back at 1 p.m. because I had to stand herd 50 miles in 5 hours because of Marmaduke.
Wow.
This in the book. I seriously just opened it up,
That
found a little
dadgum
passage.
Marmaduke.
That book is filled with that kind of stuff. It's a classic.
One time we were we had a lot of yearlings turned out up there in Colorado, and Kelly, my sister Kelly, she used to train a lot of colts, ride a lot of colts, and she put the miles on them, and that's why really we made good horses just because they got the miles on them. And she was having trouble with this colt that somebody sent her, and she said, "I'm going to get on this colt, and I'm going to go check water." And Jim, she left the house, which from the house to the far east side was about 18 miles. And she left the house one morning on that colt. I didn't. I got in the trailer, but I went and checked certain waters, and she went check certain waters, and she did not get back till late that evening. And I said, "What in the heck took you so long?" We was really getting worried about her, and she goes, "This dadgum colt caused me so much trouble." She said, "I got over there in the sand hills, and we went to every tank." And she said, until he gave up, I just stayed on him. And she got back about 6 o'clock that evening. And to go from there to the far east tank and back was a total of about 32 miles. And who knows what she did in between. But she sure put in a long day. And that reminded me of that. That guy went 25, 50 miles in 5 hours. That was amazing. Those horses were hard,
Yeah, I know.
hard,
You
hard.
have a hard time finding a horse to do that.
Oh yeah.
Maybe them horses of that Derek Begay in that Dale Brisby.
They could do it. They could do it. Those horses were good horses.
Yeah.
Tough, tough.
There ain't any around here, I doubt.
There ain't nothing on my outfit that could do that. I can
Well, yeah, I
guarantee
know there's nothing.
the
Mine gets
horses on
winded
the
hitting the
horses on
trough.
our outfit are a lot like me, old, soft, and out of shape.
All right. See you next week.
Hey, go watch that Maude interview with
Yeah.
Lonesome Lands.
Go to lonesomelands.com, subscribe.
Yep,
Maybe we'll keep doing it.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Adios.